Hi, I'm Steve Beatty, Global Chairman of KPMG's Infrastructure Practice.
Has the global COVID-19 pandemic forced us to rethink our supply chains?
I think what it has done more than anything else is it's forced us to understand and take into account the risks inherent in our supply chain. Traditional enterprise risk management thinks in single risk terms, and we've asked people to think in compound terms. What that's done is that has increased significantly the focus on risk and people's attempt to minimize the risks that they face. In terms of the risks themselves, we have focused for the last 20 years on driving cost out of the supply chain, whether that be reducing the number of factories, whether that be remote sourcing or offshore sourcing. And that has led to single point risk. We first saw this, or I first became aware of this in 2011 when Japanese car makers couldn't continue to manufacture cars because of floods that occurred in Thailand, and the electronic components were unavailable during those floods. Interestingly, when we look at this, what we see coming forward is a thickening and a shortening of supply lines. And if you think about it moving from a single long pipe, it will in the future look much more like a web than an individual pipe. We will see more onshoring and nearshoring, and Canada, next to the largest consumer market in the world, is very well positioned from a supply chain perspective.
How do you rate Canada in terms of its, let's say, resilience, but also the agility of its supply chains?
Canada is a much more measured place than many other places on the world, and our reactions tend to be a bit more muted. Therefore, our initial moves may not be as grand or as great. Having said that, access to very large markets and supply from very large markets is an incredibly important part of the Canadian supply scene. As I look at the marketplace, I see Canada being very resilient. We're a bit unconfident, at least in our public dialogue about our resilience and our ability to react. But I think in the large measure, we are seeing Canada being very, very positive in terms of our ability to react. The market's reaction to Canada is very, very positive, and Canada's ability to react and to continue to honor its commitments has been paramount and has been one of the true hallmarks of the Canadian economy through this crisis.
Would you say that from a, let's say, international CEO's perspective, Canada is a leading investment destination? And if so, what other benefits does Canada offer those investors?
I think it is a leading jurisdiction from the perspective of a jurisdiction that minimizes risk. Canada is a small place when measured in population terms. But having said that, small and reliable and consistent are the hallmarks of Canada in the world. And those are very positive attributes when you're thinking about investing. Interestingly, our experts talked a lot about the quality brand of Canada and how the Canadian brand is viewed as being safe, the Canada brand is being safe, as being high quality. And it's something that we learned more about as we conducted the research.
What opportunities or what specific sectors, let's say, do you think foreign investors should look at, in particular, considering this massive level of investment in Canada's infrastructure?
We have focused on three in particular: advanced manufacturing, agribusiness, and clean tech. We think that all three will offer significant opportunities to both Canada and to investors in Canada. Interestingly, the discussion as we focus on this, Canada is uniquely positioned in each case. There are attributes of the Canadian economy, our historical approach to certain sectors gives Canada an important advantage in these sectors. At the same time, we have a significant advantage in terms of our labor force and in terms of the training and the training potential in our labor force. Now, could we be doing better? Absolutely, we could be doing better. But in terms of how we're doing compared to many others, it's a very, very positive story from Canada's perspective. Interestingly, access to the very large United States and Mexican markets is a key element of all three of these sectors. But again, largely these are sectors where Canadian competence is at or near the best in the world.
In which areas do you think we could improve our, I guess, the development of our infrastructure and how we leverage that to attract more foreign investment?
I think three things. The first is obviously a continued support for our international agreements, continued support for training and development. And then I think thirdly, really focusing on areas where there is significant benefit to Canada. Now, I'll just give you a simple example, and this isn't a Canadian example, but it's an example we dealt with earlier in the year. Another foreign government was trying to find a way to stimulate its economy, and it decided it wanted to invest in public transit. Investing in public transit would result in significant growth through the construction of the civil works, but it didn't make any buses in country, and the only economic value add would be the painting of the buses. And so one of the things that I think we need to remember is the domestic content of the sectors. These three sectors have significant domestic content, and as we expand the investment in these sectors, we will tend to see a greater economic and industrial impact. For advanced manufacturing, for instance, we do have a relatively cheap and abundant water supply and energy resources. We have a highly trained and diverse workforce, and we have significant expertise in logistics. Canada is a big place, and we have figured out how to move goods and goods in particular, but also services around the country efficiently and effectively. Interestingly, the Canada brand over and over again comes up, both in terms of experts within the country and outside. And again, our experience with human capital in all three sectors, very, very important. Interestingly, we do, however, need to make sure that we are continuing to have access to the United States market, and that represents the principal demand option for Canada.
What would you say to people who are concerned about obviously the rise of China, what's happening south of the border right now, or in other parts of the world? In other words, a certain form of protectionism, but also a certain form of imperialism. Is Canada well positioned to continue to attract investment considering those mega trends?
I think our experts have told us very much that we are. Recognizing the scale of Canada, Canada doesn't have 1 billion people, and we aren't the largest consumer market in the world. But having said that, Canada has high quality as its real brand in the world, and what I would call a muted response to many actions. In other words, we're a good partner, and we're a good, constant, faithful partner, and I think that will show great value in the coming decades. And again, I'm not in any way saying that the others aren't reliable partners. What I am saying is that in a world where there is constant upheaval and turmoil, Canada has a reputation for I'll call it sobriety, or shall we say muted response. And I think that's a very big advantage in a tumultuous world. I think our economy is poised to take advantage and prosper from the changes that have been set in place set in motion by COVID. I don't think we need massive changes. The things that we have in place are good, strong, durable advantages. Our experts told us that we should be confident and that Canada is well positioned to prosper in the future.